It's great to have you back on the road to rock. I know it hasn't been all that long, but when all your new projects come up, I get my name right in the hat to have you
Oh,
back
I
on because,
appreciate that.
well, I appreciate you being willing to be a frequent visitor and come back again. Sometimes we lose people.
The pleasure's all mine. I know what you mean. It's like, yeah, you got to kind of jump on these things because we're losing people. So,
Oh,
cheers.
that is a sobering thought. Aerosmith's farewell tour is about to start. Kiss is
Yes,
going to
yeah.
end theirs, maybe in
But
December.
somehow Ringo Starr's going on the road. So go figure.
I think as long as that happens, there's hope that
Mm,
our heroes and that this music will live forever. We already know that's the case. So, Todd,
absolutely.
how's it been going? Did you just get back from playing some shows in Alaska? Did I see that?
Yeah, I did. I did a whole run in Europe with Heroes and Monsters, the
Yep.
project I have with Will Hunt from Evanescence and Steph Burns from Alice Cooper and a bunch of other stuff. Then I came home and me and some friends went up to Alaska, Blas Elias from Slaughter and Doc Ellis and Jimmy Romero, and we went up and played a couple shows up there, and then back here I did the Sin City Sinners guys. We did a reunion show this past weekend, and yeah, I mean it's just I like to I like to keep working and keep playing and keep doing stuff. So it's sort of nonstop. Yeah.
Yeah, no
My,
rest for the wicked. What was I was just in Alaska last summer for the first time. Absolutely
where'd you
beautiful.
go?
Uh in Alaska, so like Denali and some of the coastal places. Where were you at? Where did you play?
Specifically, I usually go to Juneau. A friend
Yeah.
of ours is up there. We went to a place called Huna.
Yeah,
So we
who
only
does
played
it?
a couple. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, we really enjoyed the entire thing. They really take great care of you, and it's such a beautiful experience. I mean, being Canadian, a lot of it's very familiar. It
True.
has it has. I grew up in that kind of hang. You know what I mean? But not very coastal though. But we did have a lot of lakes. But yeah, no, it's amazing up there. I think everybody should check it out.
So what's your situation right now with Raiding the Rock Vault, one of my favorite shows in Vegas?
I'm always sort of if I'm in Vegas, I'm there. I'm kind of like I treat it as sort of like as my friend calls it. I treat it like the dojo. I go down there and keep in shape, and if I'm here and they'll have me, I'll go down and rock with them. They're really great people and really great friends. Blas Elias is in it. Rowan Robertson from Dio and a bunch of great people who are just really great friends and put on a great show, and it's so much fun, and like I say, it keeps me sharp. I mean, I'm one of those guys that I like to be kind of challenging myself on a regular basis. It's I'm also one of those people who could be very convinced to just sit on the couch. So, yeah. So
Me
I have to
too,
be
which is why
careful.
I'm doing that exact thing right now. It's why I do what I do and you do what you do, Todd. There's always a cutoff for people like us because people that are in my position love all the music just as much as you do. There just becomes a time where it's like, oh, yep, can't do that, can't play that. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, well, on to something else. I guess I'll talk about it. Those that can't do, talk, and that's right.
That's honestly, I'm sort of the other side, but I'm still doing it and I still talk about it, and it's still kind of my obsession and the reason I get up and the reason I go to bed. I guess it's like the whole thing is rock and roll all the way.
Well, as a kid growing up in Saskatchewan in Canada, did you? I mean, to see where you've come, the journey, this career, to Las Vegas, to Sin City Sinners, to Raiding the Rock Vault, to Took, to Bruce Kulick, to Slash. When you're growing up there, I mean, are you someone that knew at some point that like this 9 to 5 job, like get married out of high school, go do all that? Did you realize that wasn't for you, and you set
Oh,
off on this path, or was it like no, it just kind of fell that way?
it's a bit of both because I think that I was like 14, 15 years old playing in a band, and that band sort of you know it, I was young, and it was sort of like rather than bagging groceries or whatever kids did for high school jobs, I was playing in high school dances. Back then they would have live bands, and we would drive out to one place on Friday and one place on Saturday and come home and do it every weekend. and I always had money in my pocket from doing that, and I think that, I just sort of realized, oh, this is a thing. I can do this. And it was sort of like the list of options to me just ended there. I was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I don't really have any sort of backup plan at all. And I never really ever have. And so to me, I just kept following that path. It had a couple dead ends along the way, or what felt like dead ends that turned into other things. But that's the nature of life. It's just sort of, I just didn't really have any other interests. I just didn't really have any other, it's funny, I would fall into some kind of a day job just to kind of make life work, to pay bills and still play music. And people would be like, if you took this course, you could really advance at this job. And I was like, dude, I'm only here to pay the rent, and I'm getting the hell out of here as soon as, and then an opportunity would come out and I'd be gone, and, but I understand, because along the way, when I was a kid, I was like playing in bands and traveling around and not making a lot of money and barely making, I never even had a home. I would just kind of live on the road, come back, crash on couches, and, figure out where, what I got to do, just can't wait to get back on the road. And, but other guys would drop off. They would be like, they'd fall in love, or they'd have a
damn that.
Yeah, or school, or a job, or whatever. And I was one of those people that was going, are you crazy? This is the greatest thing ever, and just never did. And I just think that the fact that I just never fell off of it is why I'm still doing this.
Well,
maybe it's almost pathetic.
No, quite the opposite, actually. It's funny because John Corabi was on a couple weeks ago, and he talked about, his path, and that later on in life, in between bands, he just decided he wanted to get his trucker's license, CDL, and like drive a truck. Yeah. And I'm like, why the hell did you do? I mean, but like he wanted to.
He's such a
try
character.
This.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I've known a lot of people who've done crazy things like that, who've gone off and, get a pilot's license, or, whatever, like they'll go off and do some kind of challenge. I guess most of my interests are all in this. And I think it's weird to say, because people have always, we should do this, or you want to go do that, or whatever. And it's always kind of like, nah, I'd rather stay here and play guitar, or rather go do shows, or make music, or go to the studio, or whatever. To me, that was always where my interests lie. And I guess the fact that nothing really distracted me from that, other than, normal things in life. I guess that's why I just kept doing it.
Well, we got to talk about the latest project. It is Blackbird Angels. The new album comes out September 8th. It's coming up. And I hate to be in this position. My mom was an English teacher. I'm great at pronunciation and spelling. Sol sorte? Am I saying that right?
That's, honestly, I've been meaning to chase this down myself, because it was pitched to me by Tracii a long time ago. Tracii lives, splits his time between LA and Denmark.
Right.
So it's a Danish word for blackbird. And I'm not sure if it's sol sort, or sol sorte, or sol sorty. I don't know. So I'll have to ask Tracii. He's
good. I'm rarely
he's the
caught in these
multicultural one.
Right. Exactly.
Me too. You think I should know how to pronounce the goddamn album, but I will chase that down. You're about the third guy to ask me that. I'm like, you know what? I need to know that.
We'll go with that. We'll go with what we know and what we have in front of us here. And the truth of it is, I just got the full thing. So I've got like kind of one run through of it, and I'm such a fan. I think this, melding of you and Tracii Guns, it's natural. It seems like there's a lot of chemistry there. Tracii's a great guy, great guitarist. And this thing, to me, has a lot of 70s rock kind of written all over it. I know Tracii is of that ilk. I know you are as well. I hear like a lot of some certain songs. I hear a lot of Cheap Trick a lot of Aerosmith. Is that kind of your guys' influences coming out? And do you agree that there's kind of a 70s vibe to this?
It was actually purposeful for sure. Like the initial conversation was like, we saw our North Star was Led Zeppelin and Bad Company and Humble Pie, and, and then all the groups you mentioned they inevitably just sort of filter through. It's just sort of the nature of what you do. So the record itself was actually on purpose, kind of like, let's make a straight up rock record, like,
right.
A classic, rock record. I mean, it sort of diverts every now and then. A song like Only Everything is a little different, has almost like a punk rock kind of vibe to it, or somebody said like an LA Guns vibe. I thought, well, that's a real stretch. I go,
yeah.
I don't know how did we land in that territory. But I think that, it's always good to have a a manifesto of like, we're going to make the 70s rock record, and we went out to do that. And so in sitting down to create it, nothing was really discarded. It was just kind of like everything that kind of came up just felt like, as you do this kind of thing, you end up writing X amount of songs and you go, well, that's a record right there. Boom, done. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. And I tell you, on my first run through, my initial run through, and that, if you're like a music geek like me, you know that listening to something once doesn't quite tell the tale, but I'm a huge fan of the song Mine All Mine. That's like my song right now. And that's the second track on the album. And that one's like very straight ahead, very much like you get those Todd Kerns signature vocals, the great guitar stuff. So tell me about that song. What was kind of the process of that one? And is that one of your favorites as well?
Absolutely. That's the first one we did together, actually, was Mine All Mine. Mine All Mine. It was
I love in parentheses. It's like a country song.
Yeah, exactly. It's always that sort of like I don't know, it always seems mildly pretentious, but I always love that kind of like,
unless it's you make me in parentheses rock hard, then it's not quite as pretentious. Right?
Oh, now you just took it up a notch. I love that. But yeah, no, it definitely that was the sort of like, we're going to try and make a Led Zeppelin record. So there's a bit of slide guitar and this kind of falling vocal that gives this sort of,
right.
The song itself doesn't feel really super Zeppelin-y in itself, but there are elements of it, and I think that was kind of enough to kind of, like I say, steer the ship towards that goal. And the song is just sort of, it came together really fast. That's the one thing about this record, is there was not a lot of beard stroking and, let's go have a cup of tea and talk about it. It was just kind of fast and furious and hot and heavy, and out it came. It just sort of, each song just kind of happened real fast, and that's a good example of it. Tracii really leans toward that one as well. He wanted that to be a single, so that I'm sure it'll end up being a single at some point. But it's it feels really unique in and of itself, I think, and that's the fact that you've kind of like, because sometimes when you get these kind of like these projects, it's kind of like somebody took, it's like peanut butter and chocolate and you put them together. Isn't it delicious? But then sometimes it's like peanut butter and barbecue sauce, and you go, well, I like barbecue sauce and I like peanut butter. I don't know if I like them together, but
sure.
In this instance, I think we're definitely like, I don't know, we've the winning combination of these ideas of, his motivation and my motivations were very much sort of in tune with where we landed on this, for sure.
Well, in the press release, you talked about that this was a cathartic experience for you. It's you're quoted as saying it became some of your favorite music that you've ever been a part of. It's real, raw, and it rocks. So some of the favorite music you've ever been a part of. That says a lot. Why is that? Why do you feel like that's the case?
I think because it was just so organic and so natural. Like there wasn't what I was just talking about. There wasn't a lot, and I've been involved in, I've been involved in songs that came together like that, and I've been involved in songs or albums that took a lot of hard, stressful work, and they're both rewarding in their own way. You know what I mean? Both processes are rewarding in their own way. But there was something about this project where it was kind of like Tracii, ever since the first time I played with Tracii, he was always very complimentary about what I do. And it's interesting because people know me as a bass player or, the background vocalist or whatever. So being sort of like respected as a vocalist from somebody like Tracii, who is somebody I admire, and I've always admired everything he's done. And it's sort of like, it was a real kind of tip of the cap to have someone like him say, would you like to sing on this? I would like to put the trust of you writing melodies and lyrics and singing on this recording. It said a lot, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, of course. And then every time I handed in I'd sit in the studio here and record a vocal and send it off and think, he very well, it could have been just like, that was terrible. This is never going to work. Just throw it out. But it just kept kind of going, that was great. Let's do another one and another one and another one. And that, it was just such a satisfying experience. It's kind of like, it just felt natural. It felt fun and it felt real. You know what I mean? And I think the songs all turned out to be the one thing, I always kind of giggle about is is how, the only way to really be immortal is to have this music that just kind of lives on, and I there's a weird thing that I say once in a while where I kind of feel like, you know, I'm not one of those people who's had like this massive, gigantic solo hit and went on to make gazillions of dollars because of it. But I always love the idea that your songs can be found in 20 years from now. You know what I mean? Like somebody could just find or cover it or whatever. And that's kind of the beauty of music, is it just kind of lives on. Like I'll be dead and gone, and someone will find It's Not You, It's Me, or some song that I've done in the past and be like, hey, this is a cool song. Let's do it, whatever. And I'll be dead and gone and won't know about it. But it's kind of the beauty of that. And having the Blackbird Angels album now on the top of the pile of all this work I've done is sort of like, is another beautiful thing that, someone's going to walk up to me. It's the weirdest thing when people walk up to me and they'll say the most random recording that I've done. This is my favorite thing you've ever done. And I'll be like, wow, thank you, And, and someday someone's going to walk up to me with that Blackbird Angels record and have me sign it, and it'll be important to them. And that means everything.
Well, Frontiers has done such a tremendous job. We've talked about them before, putting together projects. And like you said, sometimes it's peanut butter and jelly. Sometimes it's peanut butter and barbecue sauce. So I get first question, who is involved in more Frontiers projects, you or Jeff Pilson? And the answer is Jeff Pilson, because nobody could ever talk.
Pilson.
It's like, it's a bear to have Jeff Pilson on the podcast. We just had him on last month. He started a farewell tour with Foreigner, one of the biggest, most reliable classic rock acts. They're still going.
Absolutely.
And then 4 or 5 projects. It's like, I don't know where to start. Jeff, just like, tell us everything you know about what's coming up. And he has it down.
And then you got to bring up Dokken, because that was the biggest.
Yeah, then it's like, oh yeah. He's like, oh yeah, and I might play some shows with Dokken next year too. And it's like, oh well, we got Black Swan. It's like, well, I've joined Revolution Saints because Jack Blades couldn't do this record. I'm like, oh Jeff, like, oh my God, like. I
know. Well, Jeff's biggest coup is being such a talented producer and songwriter and all that kind of stuff too. So on top of everything else about Jeff, because I saw Jeff when I was about 14 opening for Kiss, and he was the one to me that stood out in Dokken, maybe because I have bass player leanings.
Sure.
But I remember just thinking, like, there was something about, like, George came out and just kind of plants this total like guitar stance, right? He just does his thing, and Don is kind of like a sort of not a real kind of emotive front man. He sort of just has this vibe. And then over, on stage left, stage right, there's this bass player going bananas. He would take his bass off and bang on it and put it on. He had bass pedals that he would step on. He had a keyboard. And I was like, and he was singing like a bird, all these harmonies. And I was like, who's that guy? That guy's, to me, that guy's the star. You know what I mean? But the funny thing about both Heroes and Monsters and Blackbird Angels is that neither of those were put together in that sort of classic Frontiers way. I was approached by Will Hunt and Steph Burns for Heroes and Monsters more as like would you be up for this kind of thing? We want to make a record. I don't know if they'd initially had landed it at Frontiers or what, but that was sort of like, yeah, of course. And then the same with Tracii. Tracii just came to me, and Tracii has his own relationship with them. I mean, he does the stuff with Michael Sweet and other things like that as well. So Tracii Tracii's a very productive individual. So, I mean, this is yet another thing that he's managed to squeeze out. But, I think we've done it's really a great piece. And to Frontier's credit, that's the weird thing about the music industry these days is so many people are not making new music. The Aerosmiths and Kiss and all my favorite bands stopped making new music years ago, So it becomes harder and harder to be motivated to make music because no one knows quite what to do with it. I mean, bands like Cheap Trick or Paul McCartney or any of those people who they clearly make music because they just love creating and love making music. And they're not as freaked out about like, I don't know, like just the sort of like revenue stream of your product. I mean, it's a different game entirely. Back in the 70s, you'd make records and you go out and support that record.
Right.
Now it's like the record is just kind of like an excuse to go on the road. And usually people are going like, play I Want You to Want Me or whatever. We don't need to hear any of the new music, But if you give it a chance, bands like LA Guns even now as sort of a legendary act, their new music is in my opinion, it's as strong as ever, really. I think the newer records are bizarrely uh, in my opinion, as strong as anything they put out back in the day. So
Agreed.
I think creating music is really important, and I think I'm very grateful that this all kind of came at me because it's the thing I love to do the most is write and create music. And when you sort of find yourself, in an industry that's sort of a bit challenged in that department, it's very easy to just kind of quietly be playing bass in the background of something and then suddenly be 75 years old and realize, oh, I didn't write any, oh, I forgot to write songs again. so now it's like, having Took, which we really kind of leaned into writing music a lot. So we have a new single coming pretty soon too. And then having Blackbird Angels and then having Heroes and Monsters. So actually being like really super creative and really super productive, to me is kind of like, hey man, I'm game. Like, yeah, I want to keep doing this for as long as I can.
Well, in the middle of all this, you're going to be in Sarasota, Florida, October 13th and 14th. This is from those that brought you Creatures Fest. This is Kiss Cancer Goodbye 2.
Yes.
In Sarasota, Florida. This is like kind of like Creatures Fest, which I think was in May of 2022. And it's going to be you, Bruce. You guys are going to do like the entire Alive 3 album. Ace Frehley is going to be there. Basically, it's Creatures Fest without Vinnie Vincent, so it's cheaper, and you'll be able to get in for a lot more affordable price because there's no Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah, I mean
that's my Vinnie Vincent joke for the day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. But the fascinating thing was, I remember people like, I was there. I watched the whole Vinnie Vincent thing, and people were like, it was just this sort of universal experience with all these people who were kind of like not sure what they just experienced, not sure if they liked what they just experienced. It was very unconventional because it was like Vinny started that whole thing just shredding for about 20 minutes.
Right.
And then they went into some songs and it was kind of like to a backing track or something. And then I remember walking out of there going like, yeah, but if it wasn't crazy, I think I'd be disappointed.
True. That's a good point.
If it wasn't this bizarre story of like me just explaining that to you just now, sounds nuts, but it's like, that's what it was. And he was like, we were standing outside, getting ready to go in, and he was already shredding. Like the doors are closed, and we're like, is he shredding in there? And he was just shredding away, doors open, we all come in, and he'd probably already been shredding for 15 minutes. And then we all walked up there and he just shredded for 20-25 minutes or something. And then some songs happened. And I said, yeah, but this experience is the most unique experience. I think it'd be great to watch him just play some songs with some guys and it sounds good. And we'd all be like, that was cool, but this is nuts. It's like, this is crazy and very unique and very interesting. And it's a story that we all walk away telling. And every time I see, guys from that night, it's kind of like, wasn't that crazy? And I think that's almost better than just witnessing a straight up rock and roll show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a blabbermouth headline and immediately. And so that kind of lives on. But this event's going to be awesome because you guys are doing Alive 3, the whole thing. It's closing out the event on Saturday, the 14th. I'm very jealous of this. I'm going to try my best to get there because I'll be honest, the most fun I've had at a show, Todd, and I told you this last time, I'll reiterate it now, was New Year's Eve, 2021 at Counts of Amped. You, Bruce, Zach, and Eric Singer, who just some guest drummer off the streets came in that night.
Yeah, some hack we found.
Just, I mean, you made it through it, okay, but what a night! I brought my girlfriend who is, like surface level Kiss fan, but like I got her into a lot of the 80s stuff and Revenge and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
This Alive 3 thing is going to be awesome, and this event looks like it's going to be great. Chris Jericho and his band Quarantine, they're a blast. All the guys, I mean, this is going to be great. Ace himself is going to be there, so this is going to be a fun event, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. When I signed on, we didn't even have a lot of. I know Bruce wasn't really involved. It was just kind of like, when someone approaches you and goes, we're doing a a cancer charity. I'm like, of course I'll be involved. I'll do whatever I can, and it slowly grew into, not only am I doing Saturday, I'm doing Kiss Alive 3 in its entirety, but on Friday I'm doing Lick It Up in its entirety with with a bunch of other dudes, these guitar player from Quarantine it's going to be nuts. It's like, and it's the kind of stuff that, I'm such a sucker for it because I'm like, I love it so much that it's kind of like, have you ever considered doing Lick It Up in its entirety? And I stop and I think to myself, okay, give me more, a million to one. I go, that'd be awesome. I go, let's do that. And then when Bruce gets involved, it's like Kiss Alive 3. I go, well, we've already done every single song from Kiss Alive 3 in some fashion or another. I'm like, of course, let's do that, And the big point is, is being a part of a charity and hoping to, attract attention to the cause and hopefully raise as much money as possible and make some kind of difference. It's crazy to think that, that's, it would be nice one day to be like, we don't need to do this charity anymore because all these problems have been solved, but we're not there yet, not by a long shot. So, it's like, I'm happy to do what I can.
Well, excuse me, a little bit about me. I think I might be the only person that can say this. I'm sure there's someone that could come out and say this, but Alive 3 is the first Kiss album that I ever bought.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, for one, I'm 39 years old, so I had to. I'm behind a little bit, just by no fault of my own. But I remember going to the.
It's your parents' fault, I think.
I know. Yeah. I got some grays in the beard. The hair is going. I have all the markings of someone that's like in their 50s and lived this. But I went to this CD store, CD warehouse back then, and I was like looking at all of them. I was like, God, I looked at it and I was like, like this has like a lot of hits on it, but it's live. So it's kind of a greatest hits, but then you've got, okay, I know some of these 80s songs, and this is a good all-encompassing place for me to really start here. Yeah. And it was. And it's a great, I think it's as good as any live album Kiss did. Alive 1 is iconic and you can't really top it. Yeah, I like it better than Alive 2. I hesitate to say that out loud and in public, but I've just done it.
Well, you've just done it. You've outed yourself. I mean, it's hard for me because, of course, most of it I experienced in real time. I would have come in somewhere around Kiss Alive 1. In reality, I mean, I wouldn't have started buying Kiss records until 1978 because, I was, I'm older than you, but I was still a child, And so for us, it was awesome. My brother and I would go down every weekend, combine our allowance and buy a record, and it was like, so in 1978, it was before, because Dynasty wasn't out yet. So we would kind of like, we had all 4 solo albums. We had Love Gun, Rock and Roll Over, Destroyer, Kiss Alive 1, Dress to Kill,
Love Gun,
Hotter Than Hell, and then the first album, and then the originals, like the all those kind of things. There was so much music to
Double Platinum, my favorite.
Double Platinum, all that stuff to digest. So by the time Kiss Alive 2, when you get into like Kiss Alive 3, for me, it's like I'm well invested. I've seen the first time I saw Kiss was with Bruce, like with Bruce Kulick playing guitar. I was like, they was on the Animalize tour. So, I never got a chance to see the original wave of makeup Kiss because I was too young. And
was that the Dawkins show that opened?
That was Dawkins.
Yeah.
That was Dawkins. That was Dawkins.
84?
84, yeah, exactly. And so Dawkins. And all my friends saw Queensryche. I think Queensryche started like the next night or something like that on that same tour. But I saw Dawkins, and it was a perfect night. I remember Gene standing on the side of the stage during Dawkins' set in a long leather coat like this, and the crowd started chanting Gene's name in the middle of a Dawkins set. And I thought, this is pretty rad. Yeah. It was like I have arrived at a Kiss show. But Kiss Alive 3 is what it does work as is such a great overview of that particular moment in time.
Yes.
And almost works as a collection of great songs. And then you get the live versions of, keep in mind that Animalize Live Uncensored, we always we listened to the hell out of that, watched the hell out of that movie.
I love that.
The video.
Show. Yeah.
So that in a lot of ways to me felt like a live album too, But you're
so
getting
fast. They played everything so fast. It's amazing.
Very fast. Yeah. Well, I guess that's sort of the Eric Carr era live, and then you get Eric Singer's era is sort of a lot more aggressive in a way. Like they definitely kind of leaned into, the slightly darker kind of thing that Revenge kind of brought. And that was a great era. I mean, the Revenge and all that was such a great um, period of that particular lineup. So when Zach and I were playing at New Year's with half of the Revenge era Kiss, it was pretty sweet. Yeah, we were pretty excited about it.
God, I relived that moment quite a bit. That was amazing. Is there a more fun song to sing? No, and this all encompassing, whether it be Raiding the Rock Vault, all the hits that built rock and roll in the entire world. But is there a more fun to sing than when you start I Just Want to Forget You? It's a vocal.
Yeah.
I got a body built for sin.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should never have done that. But you get it.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
You get it.
That is a classic. And the best part of that song is it's just so all encompassing. It's one of the songs, although most of the Kiss songs are kind of like that. Everybody sings every word. Everybody just jumps in and gets involved from the get-go. And it's such a sing-along chorus, as you know. And yeah, that's a fun one indeed, for sure.
Well, so much coming up for you. I want to make sure, because you have some toque dates as well coming up in November, right? So you have a new single coming out and some shows coming up. So
yep, we go out. I always giggle because I'm kind of like, we always find a chance to go up to Canada at the coldest possible moment.
Yeah, I noticed that. Wow, November.
We'll be running across the prairies, the Midwest, from mid-November to for about 6 shows, I think it is. We do, all the way through the prairies. Is where I grew up and where we all grew up is our old stomping ground. So it'll be really fun. And all of my youth and all of my early days of playing music were spent in that part of the world. So it's really fun for us to get to go up there and see all the old faces and really celebrate Canadian rock and roll. And that's essentially what that show is just a gigantic Canadian party.
Does that mean Kick Axe is opening?
I wish. Are you kidding? We would open for them.
I love Kick Axe.
We were all obsessed with Kick Axe. Trust me. It was like, and those guys were a big deal. They, at the time, I remember they went out and they were opening for Judas Priest on the Screamin', or maybe it was Defenders of the Faith. I can't remember. But that was such a big deal for some guys from Saskatchewan are going to be out opening for Judas Priest. Was like, what? It's like, but deservedly so, because if any of the viewers are aware of the Vices album and the Welcome to the Club album, they will realize, and Rock the World, those 3 albums were so damn good, and I highly recommend them to anybody who likes loud rock and roll.
Well, we might just have stumbled upon a business venture here. You do Kiss Alive. Maybe you should do a best of Canadian 80s metal tour where you do like Anvil, where you do Street Heart and Kick Axe.
Maybe Helix.
See?
Yeah, it's Triumph. It's an endless, that's a rabbit hole you want to be careful of. It's funny because guys like Chris Jericho and he's Canadian as well, and he's very well invested in all that stuff. Kick Axe and Street Heart and those bands are our favorite bands because they come from our neck of the woods. And I think it was sort of a real sort of window into what you could possibly. It's one thing to be like, I love the Rolling Stones or I love Kiss or whatever, but places like London and New York City just seemed, they may as well have been Mars. You know what I mean? But when you say this band is from here and they're doing stuff, it makes you kind of go, well, I want to do stuff. How do I do stuff? And that sort of opens up that door to kind of, let's go do that stuff,
Well, Todd, thank you again for your time. It's always such a pleasure, and continued success, my friend. I want to make sure everybody once again is aware. Blackbird Angels. We're going to say Sol Sorte is out September 8th. So definitely get it. You will not be disappointed if you're a fan of 70s rock and roll, Todd's vocals, Traci's guitar playing. It's all there and it's all prevalent and it's all great stuff. Todd, thank you so much once again. And good luck in Canada in November. Hopefully you make it out of there.
Yeah, exactly. How about I don't freeze to death? Yeah,
exactly.
No, I grew up in that stuff. It's like riding a bike. It comes back real fast. You go, here it is. Yeah. Jacket,
chains on the tires. Boom. You'll be fine. Thank you so much, Todd.
Chains on the tires. Thank you. Hope to see you out there somewhere, man.
You bet. Will do.